All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another weekly live stream. It is Wednesday. It's the day this week I had time to come down here and do this. Really looking forward to this, actually, today. I've really enjoy doing these live streams with everybody. So hopefully the camera's working. Hopefully the audio's working today. Hopefully we'll get some people in here. I know we got Mr. Guppy Guru himself, and we have Sharon hanging out here with us. It will be helping with some moderating. All right. So tonight we are going to talk fish foods. It's kind of I think it's something I've teased like 2 weeks in a row now. So this is probably the third week I've been now doing this. Excuse me. Just unfortunately, the last 2 live streams that I was talking about doing live foods, we just had things that were started to either come up, some new topics and changes that I wanted to absolutely get into and talk about. And I enjoy what I enjoy, and I talk about what we're going to talk about. So, but before we get started on the actual conversation of fish foods and that nature, something really cool happened this week I want to share with everybody. So in these insane times we're in, right, even just with the economy going down, but even just before everything happened, not a lot of new fish stores were coming out. There was only a couple I knew of in my area, but they've all been established. Mr. Bay Area Aquatics coming in. Glad to have you here, man. So I say, a new fish store is kind of a rarity right now. And I got very lucky that a new fish store actually just opened in my area, and it's like literally just opened. Saturday was their grand opening, their first day open. I was able to go that day, kind of check their store out. Lewis and Nate are the owners, and guys, these are 2 good dudes, 2 great guys that know what they're doing, and they've opened up an excellent shop. So it is called the Waterfront. It's located in Murray, Utah. So it's kind of nice because there's 4 fish stores that I have known. Well, they're the 4th. 3 of the fish stores I've kind of gone to, 2 of which are actually like dedicated fish stores, like a local fish store. And the Waterfront is now actually the one that's closest to me. So that's nice, but it's also the one that's farthest from me is primarily saltwater. They do mostly reefing. The owner, Rusty, has been in the hobby for I think over 20 years. He's a mastermind when it comes to reefing. He knows his stuff on freshwater for sure, absolutely. It just the selection isn't always the best on the saltwater, the freshwater side. Excuse me. That's okay because he's mainly focusing on reefing. He's got customers, all over actually the U.S. that come to him. Sickless23, welcome. Thanks for coming in. So, but then we have another local fish store that's actually Guppy Guru. It's practically right around the corner from him. So he's got a great connection with them. They're great people, and it's a really good store, and that's where I've been to for most of my fish, and that's typically where I've gone. And I'm not bagging on anybody. But this new local fish store that opened up, the Waterfront, having it closer is nice. And honestly, it was kind of cool to be there like day one. Like I've literally been in their store, day one, and they have done an excellent job in setting up their shop. So it is it's another one that's half fresh, half salt, but already the customer service that I received from this store, it's going to be hard to beat. Like it is going to be hard to beat with this customer service. It was kind of fun too, like knowing that they were like the first day open. Hopefully I didn't offend anybody. I didn't mean to if I did, but like I went into the store and I had all intentions of, I got to test them. Like, right. I've got to find out are they my level of nerdiness about this hobby, or are they kind of like just 2 guys that started a store, because that's kind of the cool thing to do, I guess. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, you've got to be somewhat crazy to open up a fish store, and you've got to have a true passion and dream for this. And Lewis and Nate are those guys. So went in. It's very modern store. Some nice countertops, nice flooring. Like everything's just very modern. but it's very well done. And it's a small storefront, but they also have a lot of space to work with it. As I was talking with them, they understand quarantine procedures. They have, like Lewis told me, he's like, yeah, we've got room to hold, thousands of fish, but it's just upstarting. We're just making sure we bring in stock that people want. How are we going to approach this? So like, awesome. I mean, I'm so happy that a new fish store is opened. But then as I started talking to him, right, started asking questions, my questions, I kind of the probe of what level of nerd are these guys? And I'm excited. Like, these two are master nerds of this hobby, but with that, they bring that knowledge to the table. So they're going to be able to help new customers that find their store get started in this hobby. They're going to provide a great selection, both of freshwater and saltwater fish, to new customers and help them understand that. They already have a selection of coral in. They already have a selection of hard goods in. They've already set up with, suppliers, vendors. So they've already got a great thing. And then kind of to one step further that, I started kind of probing again of what fish do I have access to through you guys, right? I mean, I completely understand, like, not every single tank in the store had fish day one. Like, there's a lot of startup costs going into a brand new a shop. But it was as I started talking to Lewis more and Nate more, both of them really iterated to me that they're going to stock fish that they think newer hobbyists can have. People are looking for, already they have like some hot puffers in there. They have some bichers in there. They had endlers in there. They have guppies in there. Goldfish in there. They have discus in there. So they had a really good variety. And I am focusing on the freshwater side of things. I didn't spend much time on the saltwater side, so I'm going to reef tank up yet. But it was just, as we started talking, I'm that guy. Like, all right, like, I have specific fish I want. I have things I'm looking for. So I posed the question of what do you have access to? Kind of asking, what can you order me? If I throw a fish out, can you find it for me? Like, I really wanted to see that, because that's something I've wanted. I've wanted that connection with the fish store of, I'm looking for this. Can you get it? And it's going to go one or two ways. It's going to be, yes, we can get that. Great. Or it's going to be, I'm sorry, we can't get that. But then there's kind of a third option in my mind where it's the people who are going to say, I'm sorry, we can't get that, but we're still going to give you as much personal attention as we possibly can. And that's what happened here with the waterfront. So I initially, can you guys get me rice fish, right? That was the number one question I had was, can you get me rice fish? Most stores either don't carry rice fish, they can't order rice fish, or the ones they can't order me are typically like the daisy rice fish, which, don't get me wrong, I love the daisy rice fish, very underrated fish in this hobby. And I think that's actually the one I'm going to put out in my pond. But it was, I wanted to probe it further. And so right then and there, like immediately, Lewis just jumps on their tablet. Oh yeah, here's my vendor's list. He kept it private, which I fully regard and respect. I don't need to see everything. But it was the fact that he was just immediately taking my name and number down, looking up on his list, calling his business partner in, having, reminding him, hey, saying, let's call the vendor this afternoon so we can place an order. So when our fish shipment gets in on Wednesday, we can have the fish in for Trent. That level of service was incredible. So they found some rice fish. We're not entirely sure exactly what genus of rice fish or the coloration, but either way, like, they're rice fish, right? Rice fish is rice fish. I love them all. So I had them order me some rice fish in. Those did land at their shop today. But can I show you? Let me see if I can show you without like giving away the world. Okay. Hopefully nobody texts me right now. So Peter, Michael, do not screw with me. So just to kind of give you an idea, these are text threads that I'm having with one of the owners. Like, this is literally the personal info, like the personal connection that Lewis and Nate are giving to their customers. Is I spent probably an hour and a half in their store the first go around. I went there twice in the same day. Not gonna lie, went there twice in the same day. So, but the level of dedication that they came back to me with of, we looked into these fish for you. I can get these. But just the communication is incredible with what these guys bring to it. So they got some rice fish in for me. There is a very specific platy that I really want to bring into the fish room. Found out about them. So I kind of threw almost an impossible question at these guys of, can you get this platy fish for me? Like, can you find this specific platy fish for me? And they did. They actually found it for me. They unfortunately, they did not come in on the shipment. But again, though, this is the level of customer service. Lewis texted me, hey, your rice fish landed today. They don't look 100% okay. I'm going to medicate them here at the shop. Give me a couple days. Let me figure out, like, already he's thinking 2 steps ahead of how can I make this the best possible interaction. Then he let me know that, hey, unfortunately, the platies didn't come this week. And he was funny because he even in his text said, I think I'm more disappointed than you are because all of us in the shop were really excited to see these fish in person. But he's already put me on the list for next week, already in contact with his vendor. So the customer service of the shop has been absolutely incredible. So I know I've kind of been ignoring the chat here a little bit. Want to get into that, but I definitely wanted to give the waterfront, where credit's due, right? Like 2 guys opening up a shop in an economy that's not the best right now, but they bring such a passion and a knowledge to this that I'm really excited to see what they can do here in the local valley. So I've already talked to them. Even we've talked briefly about doing a store tour, so I can bring everybody to that shop, see what they got going on here. The excitement that they bring is contagious, very contagious, and I say I'm very excited for this. Very, very excited for this shop. So not missed here. We got Lefty in the house. I know I saw Mark sneak in. Sharon, unfortunately, they do. I can't say they don't ship. I don't know. I did not talk to them about shipping. Their online presence, they're still working on their website, so I don't know if that's going to be something they're going to incorporate into their business. But that's something that I can take to them and find out more about and kind of update everybody on. But I was so excited. That's why I want to do a store tour with them. I was just so excited to have a new fish shop and a good one that I want to do their store justice and share that with people in hopes to generate some business for them. Because I really, really do not want to see this store go under. Lefty, thank you, sir, my friend. We got the cool $2 sticker going on. Appreciate it, my man. Let's see, Carrie, do you like rice fish? I'm pretty sure you are maybe semi-mocking me a little bit. Like, if you can't tell, I freaking love rice fish. It's especially since the last live stream is like all we talked about was rice fish. But so there we are. So a quick update before we jump into the topic, because I actually had a subscriber reach out to me through email and asked if we could talk fish food this week. He told me that he's been really excited to talk fish food, wanting that to happen. Ask some questions, different things I want to get into. But we have made some excellent progress on the fish room. Video will be coming out. Where's the camera? Video will be coming out. Hopefully, I got it filmed. Doesn't need to edit it on. Yeah, right, Mike. I'm not better at guppies. You kidding me? You're going to start a war in this chat. Better be careful. Where was I at? So video coming out on the new shelves behind me we talked about in one of the last 5 streams. Really excited for those. And then I got the air system completely done on the new rack, as well as the water lines completely done on this new rack. So this rack is ready for tanks. And tonight I'm hoping to finish up the drain line for the entire fish room. Hopefully get the lighting up on this one. And then I think we're going to start even hopefully getting the first tank up on these shelves behind me tonight, because I kind of have to move things semi-strategically right now of moving tanks first and then the fish and like what fish are going where. So the fish that are going into the top tank up here, it's going to be a display tank, is actually split between 2 10-gallon tanks. So I need to move those out, and then I can hopefully get those tanks, those 10-gallon tanks, ready to come down. But I have tomorrow off work as well. So after some brief errands in the morning, things work out in my schedule, my family, I'm hoping to be down here and just really kind of cranking this out, because we are so close to finally everything being up and running. Lefty, I appreciate it. So yeah, he's correct. If you do follow me on Instagram, you can kind of tell when I'm working the fish room, because that's when I post the most on Instagram. Is just quick updates. I think I posted a picture today about the airline we ran today. I got a fan mounted on the wall today. It's all these little things that make me really excited for this. Peter, thank you for putting my Instagram link down in the chat. I appreciate it. All right. Where are we at? Let's. Oh, I gotta. Let's talk fish food. As now we got all the most of the formalities out of the way. So, Peter, feel free to drop your Instagram. You know what, Peter? Anybody that wants to put their Instagram link in, go for it. I love following individuals that are doing things in their fish room and finding different things they're going for. So, officially, fish food. Let's talk fish food. So, there's all the different sorts of fish food out there, and again, this is going to be one of those things of. This is my opinion, and this is not going to be like gospel according to what needs to happen in your fish room. Just my experience. The first thing we're absolutely going to kind of lay the precedence down of, everybody often asks, what's the best fish food, right? Like, what is the best fish food to feed my fish? We can get into the arguments and the discussions of, check the ingredients. You can find this, and that works. Like, actual ingredients are good. Like, if you find good ingredients, yes, it's going to be a decent fish food. But here's the thing. That super expensive fish food you just bought, if your fish don't eat it, what's the point of any of those ingredients? So my first real opinion on fish food is you need to find out what your fish are actually going to eat, because that is what's going to bring nutrition into them. So it may not have the best quote unquote ingredients, but at least it's going to get nutrition into your fish to allow them to grow. But then if you have, a regimen of different things you can feed, you can also, through different foods, get different nutritional items into your fish. But a subscriber kind of reached out to me and asking about raising, baby fish up to adults, and maybe the progression of fish food you may use in those settings. And it's going to be things like, we could talk all night about, there's pellets, right? Like, pellet food's great. Now you're going to have floating pellets, you're going to have sinking pellets, you're going to have, pellets made out of veggies, pellets made out of protein. Then you can have all these different brands and different things. And everybody's going to swear by a fish food and say that this is the best fish food. This is the only one I feed. This is what I've been feeding for 30 years, blah, 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 blah. That's great. Like, that's whatever works for people. But it's still, I have my favorites. Don't worry. I have my favorites. We'll talk about them. That's what you're going to hear tonight. But it's still going to be, people have success feeding the Omega Bites or when the Omega 1 brand, and then people have success feeding Northfin. It's just whatever falls into that. But if you want a really good discussion on fish food and maybe the different tastes of fish, Guppy Guru did an excellent video talking about this, and we've had a really fun discussion about this too. Of each fish may have a different taste or a different. Maybe this fish wants a small piece. This fish wants a big piece. So he's got a really good video about mixing different foods into a smaller kind of a fry food setup to feed his fish. Really interesting video. So Peter, if you want to drop that down, that link in the chat, feel free to do so. And then Barry Aquatics has got some good videos out about the Extreme brand. That came into his fish room, and he saw some variants of what his fish liked and didn't like. But so kind of starting at the beginning, right? Let's say you get a fish and you breed said fish. What do? What do you feed it, right? That's kind of where I want to start this discussion is, what do you feed a baby fish? Now, there's different avenues of this topic that we're going to have to go down, because if you breed, let's say something like a guppy, a rice fish, and a rainbow fish, maybe even like a killifish, all of those may honestly have different size fry, but they're not going to be so far off that I don't think you can still apply the same foods to each one of those. Then you can get down into some very specifics of maybe some specific fry, need more of a live food type of thing. But so starting off with, and in my experience, so the smallest fish that I've ever bred has been rice fish. That is where the fry has absolutely been the smallest. Even my swordtails dropped fry recently. Those fry, so the live bird fry, are definitely bigger than rice fish fry. And so, but it still can, apply into what I'm going to feed them, but it's still something you have to think about. Let's see. Lefty's talking about the only picky fish I have are my cories and sometimes my bettas. Yeah, I've literally had fish. Probably my discus have been the most picky on what they're going to eat. Surprisingly, the fish I've had the least problem with is my wild-caught yellow zebra plecos. That's crazy to me. Sharon says, most of my fish are small, so cyclops and small food is what matters to them. And then we get to berry aquatics. Ease of feeding is huge for me. I mean, rapashi is great, but a pain to feed. Heck, I'm too lazy to feed frozen half the time. And that's another huge part of feeding your fish, too, in an effective way, is you need to find a way that's easy, like exactly what Michael said. What's efficient, right? What's efficient in a way of and easy for you to feed? I agree. I only feed frozen food maybe twice a week, just because it does take that time to set it up and get ready and everything going for it. But Mark coming with the $4.99 super chat. Thank you, my friend, for more fish food. You better believe that we are going to be going through a crazy amount of fish food. I can only imagine here. This will be the most tanks I will ever have running in my life. I think I counted, I'll have like 25 tanks down here when they're all said and done. So back to the fry topic, right? So we get fry. Now what do you feed them? So foods that I have had success with, but everyone's going to have a different opinion on this. They may not even have access to certain foods. So something like the aquarium co-op fry food, I've had great success. Like I actually used to have some guppies that exclusively that's what I fed them. I was kind of curious to see how fast they would grow. Would they get some good nutrition into them, the protein side of things? And then if you want to, even another good video, Peter did some crazy experimentation on a long experiment of feeding guppy fry specific foods to really test in his best capabilities of what food would grow a fish fastest. But the reason I like the aquarium co-op food, a couple reasons. One, it's really small. It was specifically developed to feed fry. It's in the name, but then as Michael liked to talk about, the ease of it, it comes in those awesome little squeeze bottles. So super easy to feed. It's fast to feed. But then as you get it to it, some of the food will float on top for a minute. Some of the food will kind of slowly sink. Some of the food rapidly sinks. It just all depends on the grain size that comes out. But that's what I really like about it is you're going to see you may have some fish that love feeding off the surface of the water. Guppies I've noticed aren't as particular. They'll feed in the water column. Rice fish fry, they hang out right up at the top of the water. So I need something that they can take, right either on the surface of the water or as it just starts going down into the water column. They need to be able to get that. If you want to get even smaller than that, something like the ceramicron food is something I've had really good success with, specifically on my rice fish fry. That's what I used when I was really getting my Japanese rice fish going and had a really good group of those on the fry. I was feeding the ceramicron food probably 2 to 3 times a day. And that was because it's more of a powder food. So it just laid out perfectly on the water surface, just allowed the fish to come eat it when they wanted to eat it. But it also has a good, in my opinion, a property of nutrition values. And I saw good growth out of the rice fish. And it's something that you can use, tactics. Like if you watch Dean's Fish Room, right? He uses a paintbrush to, barely collect some of the brush, then tap it on the edge of the tank just to feed just enough for the fish to get to. I've fed my betta fish on ceramicron. I've fed guppies on ceramicron. I've fed my swordtails on ceramicron. So it's a food that adults can even take, but it's small enough. Let's say you're doing a community breeding tank of live bears, a community breeding tank of rice fish, and you still need to feed the adults, but you definitely need to feed those fry. So something like the ceramicron will meet that across the board. It's just going to give a better chance for those fry to really get into it, really get at it, and successfully eat. And then you're going to get things though. The challenge is, okay, let's say you breed bristlenose plecos, right? Bottom dwellers or catfish, they like to stay on the bottom. suction to the size of the glass, they're not necessarily going to come up to the surface and actually, feed from that. So you have to find a way to get food down to them. So again, something like the aquarium co-op fry food, it will eventually sink. It's small enough for them to get to, but then you could use things like the flu ball bug bites. Their bottom dweller formula, whatever they want to call it. I actually really like that food. I've had good success. It sinks fast. It's meant to sink. It breaks down slowly, and it gives a chance for the fish to come munch on it and eat what they can fit into their mouth. But then something that's new to me or newer is the extreme food. So their extreme sinking wafers has been it's actually become a staple of mine for a fry food, and the reason is I can drop it into the tank. It's going to sink to the bottom, and then it's slowly going to break down. It's slowly going to break down to that water column. And it is actually the one that I like the most because it stays together the longest. So it allows, pleco fry to come in and nibble on it. I drop them into my rice fish tanks because it allows the rice fish to go down and nibble on it. And as it breaks down, it's going to eventually, some of it will float back up to the surface and allow for smaller fish to still maintain on it. Think of it like a time release food. That's why I like it so much, is that I don't need to worry about dropping in enough right away. Maybe I don't have time to feed 3 times today. So I'll feed once in the morning. Maybe I'll have somebody come feed in like the afternoon, but then when I get home from work at night, I can drop in a sinking wafer, and that's going to last the fish all night if they want to come eat on that. Or if I'm, early in the morning, I can do the same thing, drop it in, and it's going to do the same thing. Looks like we got some love for the flu ball formula. Looks like Lefty's loving on those. So bug bites, I've had really good success with bug bites in the past. Not opposed at all at feeding those in my fish room. That's actually kind of what I used to, we'll say, exclusively feed. I thought it was an excellent food. Even experimented one time in making my own fish food and mixing in the soldier fly larva. I actually purchased soldier fly larva from eBay and experimented mixing it into the food. It's kind of interesting. So there's plenty of other, we'll say, fry foods you can feed, because as who's talking about earlier, Barry Aquatics talking about Cyclops, Sharon's talking about Cyclops. So now you move into things like frozen foods. Now, on the aspect of frozen foods, there's some that are better geared towards fries. So not everybody likes to, or has the ability to, the products to, we'll say the space to, the time to hatch live baby brine shrimp. It takes a process. So fortunately, you can buy what is the frozen baby brine shrimp. That's become a staple into my fish room, especially with my betta fish, especially with my live bears, and my even further the rice fish. I'm getting the same size as a live baby brine shrimp as is frozen. So it's much easier to feed. Doesn't take any time at all to hatch out. In that nature, it's not stinking up the fish room, nothing like that. But it's 1 cube of baby brine goes so far. So I've had a really good success in thawing it out in a cup and then taking a pipette and measuring out, portions to each tank, to where like 2 cubes can feed 3 tanks across my fish room. And it also depends on the stocking levels I have in there. Carrie says, I have a flower horn. I love those fish. I got a soft spot for flower horn. I had a person tell me not to use that food for him. I never asked the person why. Any ideas as why do they say don't feed that? I'm going to guess you're maybe talking about the bug bites. Did I miss something? Maybe talking about like a frozen food too. So in my past experience, when I had my flower horn, I fed that thing everything under the sun. My flower horn would munch down on pellets. He would munch down on frozen shrimp, bloodworms, frozen brine shrimp, spirulina flakes, flake food, like anything I would drop into that tank, he would just mow down. No, I never had an issue never had like an issue in digestion or health from feeding any of that. So I I agree with Lefty. It could have been a bad reaction to the actual owner. I know some freeze-dried food some people have an allergic reaction to. They may have seen their fish take it in their mouth and spit it out, right? So the fish, that particular flowerhorn, didn't like that particular food, but now they're going to tell you, oh no, that's a bad food. Don't feed your flowerhorn that, without giving real information of why. Hunter Brown, I like using live baby brine for my fry, but hatch extra and freeze the extra for later. So I learned that trick from Guppy Guru, which I think is a great option because you can get some massive hatch rates out of baby brine shrimp. And I agree. If you don't have the tank space or the amount of fish to feed it, you can definitely use it for later. So that kind of brings into, so let's go back to that frozen food side thing of there real quick. Something like Daphnia, right? You're going to have people that can culture Daphnia, something I want to play with, but I know it can be difficult, different things. You can find frozen Daphnia. It's a very small food that can trigger a feeding response in fish. Then you get into things like Cyclops, rotifers even. I've fed rotifers into my tanks. Everyone's going to tell you, oh, that's like saltwater exclusive. Nah, everything can move over to freshwater. Trust me. So enough. It's just a small frozen food. So now we get into frozen foods can have a good nutritional value. They're meaty, they're hearty, good protein, more of a naturalistic food for these fish. Maybe you haven't had a fish eating, you're having a fry struggling to get weight on it. And, it's maybe not taking flake food or powder food, but all of a sudden you drop in some baby brine shrimp and it's going nuts for it. So you've kind of got to figure out what your fish want. But now between these powdered foods we've talked about some frozen foods, you have such a variety you can feed your fish. And I do like to change up what I'm feeding. Is just I feel I get a better feed response from it. My thought process behind that is if I eat what do I have tonight? I had tacos tonight. So if I eat street tacos every day on every meal, eventually I'm going to get sick of street tacos, right? You could put it in a corn tortilla one day, a flour tortilla the next day, but it's still going to be, street tacos. But then all of a sudden, Peter takes me to this Thai restaurant and it's just the best thing I've ever had in my life. Now we're on to something. Now I found a new food I want to try. So for the next few days, I'm going to eat po noodles and these chicken sandwiches. God, it's such a good place. Man, I'm already I'm drooling thinking about this restaurant he introduced me to, but it's the same concept I think in fish. If you feed them the same flake food over and over and over, one day they may just be like, nope, not going to touch it. But then you throw in a new pellet food, and they're going to go berserk for it. Just because I think you can get a good feed response out of them changing things up. So I think it's important to change some food up with some fried food. Like I say, I've fed things exclusively on one food and have had good success out of it, right? I'm not saying every fish is going to turn their nose up at what food you're offering, but I've seen in kind of my opinion, deep mindset, if you raise a fish to readily take different kinds of food, and then let's say you either rehome that fish, you sell that fish, you're breeding that fish to send to another hobbyist, everyone else that gets that fish will have a better success at successfully getting that fish to eat. You can get to very specific cases. Like I've got a gentleman right now, we're actually talking about my Mabu puffer. We are talking about a business transaction over that. And he had a lot of good questions about the dietary needs of my puffer. He understands what they are, but a very specific questions of what is he specifically eating. I mean, we got down into discussions about like, what is his feces? What does the fecal matter look like? Like that's the level of commitment this gentleman was ready to give to this person. But even just the very specific integrated needs of some fish. But we're going to really focus in on the things that everybody can have access to, that most people have, that can be used very wide range on that. Lefty says, I got to figure out a better way to hatch brine, but I almost feel like I don't need it per se because my fry take other stuff, but I know Dean stand by it and can't go against the master breeder. So I plan on playing more with live baby brine shrimp down here in the fish room, but I will agree with you that it's time consuming, right? It definitely is time consuming. I've played with the hatchery disc where it does not require air. I still get great hatch rates out of that. I just forget about it. I honestly do. Like having a hatcher running with air, for whatever reason, my mind can pick out that sound. I know I have it running. But then like my disc, I actually forgot about it. And I think the last time I hatched brine shrimp was like 2.5, almost 3 months ago. And I just remembered the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's probably why my fish room smells so bad right now. And whew, that was a rough thing to clean out. Looks like Bear Aquatics is refusing to hatch brine shrimp. Well, I mean, like Lefty, you have good points, right? Fish can take other things and you may not need it. But then, so back on that fry conversation with live foods, something like baby brine is an excellent option to give to fish. So if I can get my rice fish eating for 2 to 3 weeks, on the powder food, getting a little bit of size on them, they may be now big enough to accept a live baby brine shrimp. But it's still the process you have to do to hatch this. You may need to set up your own water bottle system. You may have to buy a hatcher, and you got to buy the eggs. You got to buy the air pump. You got to set it up. You got to reset it every day. You got to clean the baby brine shrimp, and then you got to feed the baby brine shrimp. So it's quite a process in hatching baby brine shrimp. Even with the disc hatcher where it does not require air, you still have to get water into it, get the eggs into it, wait 24 hours to 36 hours for this food to hatch properly. You got to strain the baby brine shrimp, wash the salt off of them, feed them to your tank. So it is definitely a process. Anything, you have things like microworms, the white worms, grindle worms, all these other things. Microworms, very simple to get going, very simple to culture. But again, it takes that time. And then to feed them, you've either got to stick your finger in some goopy, icky white worm mess, or use like something like a Q-tip. But it still requires your attention because you want to make sure you don't crash that culture necessarily. So I think it's where most people shy away from the live food side of things, is it requires attention, right? If you don't give it attention, you're going to kill it. Then you don't have live food. So you're giving attention to something to feed your fish with something, but you want to give all your attention to your fish. So it's one of those things that live food definitely has a place in the hobby. And, I used to have the ocelota bettas. They eventually went to, guppy guru and that nature. We just had some tragic accidents with those. But when I first got them, I couldn't, the breeder I got them from was swearing to me up and down, left and right. Oh, they eat flake food and pellets food, just fine. Like, yeah, perfectly fine. No issues. Those fish did not eat for 2 weeks. And that was terrifying because I was literally watching these fish lose weight and literally watching them die. And, we could get into the argument of, okay, it could be because of the stress of the move, different environments. But come to find out is that this breeder was actually having them on a very steady diet of live food. And he didn't tell me that. So as soon as I got microworms going, that was the first time I successfully was able to feed those bettas. And then when Peter had them, he was telling me how he was feeding them some brine shrimp and different things. But like through it was quite a process to get those fish to readily accept food because they were raised on the live food. No, we can go down that argument all day long of, yes, there are fish that are probably exclusively raised on live food that transition over very well to like flake food and pellets. But that's one reason why I got really lucky on my discus is the gentleman I know was feeding them live baby brine shrimp, but he also did everything he could to make sure they were taking flake food and pellet food to when he sold them, people would have success with that. So now you've raised your fry, right? You got your fry, you've successfully fed it. Now, how do you continually to feed this fish? And this is where we really get into some options that's going to be the basis of this discussion. That's probably gonna, everyone's gonna have a different opinion on this one. So things like flake food. Flake food is probably the staple in this hobby. Anybody that's had a fish tank, whether that's a goldfish in a bowl, the 10-gallon tank with a shark in there, I don't know, like whoever has had a fish tank in their life, I guarantee you they have fed some sort of flake food. And that's typically because, right, it's like goldfish flakes. That's what I remember as a kid. It's like, yeah, it's goldfish flakes. I just knew flake food. Like, I didn't know that pellet food was a thing until I actually got into the hobby and really started learning about this. So everybody's gonna have a personal preference on flake food. Mine, I really do like the extreme food. I think the krill flake is a great flake food. I really like the spirulina flakes, but then one that I'm kind of frustrated is slowly dying and I just can't get my hands on it nearly as much or for the price I want to, was for the cobalt spirulina flake. I actually had really good success with all of my fish readily accepting the cobalt spirulina flake. And then I found the Sarah brand and started doing, I have their new nature. So I can respect that they're manufacturing it in a way that's more natural, less resources. That's awesome. But what I don't like is that my fish won't eat it. I feed it because I have it, but it's just, I do not get the same feed response from other fish that I have in the past. So flake food is one of those things. It works really well too. It's a nice food because you can grind it up between your fingers. You can put it into a pepper grinder. You can, mortar and bowl it. I don't know, something where you can actually make smaller size food for your fish very quickly, very easily. In situations like my old 220 gallon, when I would feed flake food for the rest of the fish in the tank, because of the overflows and the movement in the tank, if I just sprinkled it on top, it would all run down the overflow into the filter. So what I had to do was practically like dunk my hand underwater and then release it. But it did give a very widespread broadcast feeding through the tank. That was awesome. So Lefty's asking me have you tried the spirulina flake from Live Fish Direct? My fish seem to like it. So I gotta think, is Live Fish Direct the ones that I get constantly annoying emails from? If that's what I think it is, I have not. So I have not tried spirulina flake from them. I'm slightly, the funny thing is like, if you talk to people, most of us. So Lefty, is that the company that's over are they in Draper, Utah? Live Fish Direct. I think, let me look this up. If that's who I'm thinking of, they're actually local to me. Yeah, okay. Yep, they're local to me. I've not tried anything specific from them. I won't go into too much detail, but I've had let's put it this way. My first interaction with them was a very negative one. And because of that, I have not been back. But if they have a good spirulina flake, maybe I will. We'll see. Guppy saying the cobalt is the only flake he's ever used. I think cobalt made a great flake food. I really do. But the thing is, I think like fish foods are going to be sold to the fish keeper, right? Like, there are definite ways that we turn into fish food junkies. I want to try that. Oh, I want to try that. Oh, what's that ingredient? I've never seen that before. But then we don't think about it of, are my fish really going to eat this? I mean, we had a fun kind of a hashtag thing going on from one of our think tank live streams a few weeks ago, talking about like sharing up pictures on Instagram and different things of all the types of fish food we had. And in honesty, we don't need 30 different kinds of fish food. But we like to have 30 kinds of fish food because it makes us feel good. I don't know. It's one of those things. But where's that? So yeah, so flake food, definite staple, fantastic food. I like it because eventually it's going to sink down to the bottom. So like I feed plecos with flake food. I feed my rainbow shark with Flake Food. I feed rice fish with Flake Food. And it's nice too, because even if you have a larger flake, it's going to get soft in the water column, allowing smaller fish to come and rip off a piece of it, and eat it at their own leisure, kind of a thing. Maria, I'm glad you are here. Welcome to the stream. So Lefty says, I feel like Sarah is going to change her tabs back if everyone keeps saying their fish don't eat it and like it. Also helps if no one buys it anymore. You know, I know people rave about those Sarah O-Nip tabs, and the original ones, because it was kind of the same process of a slow release food to the fish. Not one of my fish that I've ever kept has even taken notice to those. I bought like the big, the massive container of them too, like not like the 5-gallon tub one, but like the jar of them, and tried it. Yeah, fish wouldn't touch it. That was a huge waste of money for me. So I don't feed anything of the tabs, but I do agree with you. The standing that they had in the hobby, and just how essential they were to people, that they've changed the processing way or whatever they changed on it, they are going to lose business. That was probably like that was the thing that people knew about Sarah. I like their micron food. That's practically what I do use from Sarah. So outside of Flake Food, once I learned about pellet food, again, kind of offered a new type of food to me. That was something new to me. And then you move into, you have floating pellets, you have sinking pellets, you have really big pellets, you have really small pellets. It's like pellet food kind of is a massive umbrella to me. So something like the Fluval bug bites, that's a pellet food to me. Is it the Tetra color granules? Like, that's a pellet food to me. And surprisingly, those Tetra color granules, Steenfot Aquatics will share up some on his community tab, some Amazon deals. And I bought the, the color granules by Tetra from that link, just kind of on a whim. That is my discus favorite food. Like, the color granules is the favorite food. But it's, Tetra is kind of that thing of, you'll find them in big box stores. You may not see them everywhere, but I think they do definitely have like a niche fitting into each one of them. Lefty says the Hikari micro pellets are nice. I've had great success with those. So I've actually used, does Hikari make the crab cuisine? I think they make like a little floating or sinking crab cuisine pellet that I actually use to feed shrimp with. Great thing about that. So there's so many types of pellets, and everybody's going to have their take on a pellet food. So something like cichlid breeders or cichlid keepers are going to feed a lot of pellet foods, because it allows the fish, they may need a little larger size of food. They kind of sink throughout the water column. My old flower horn was a bit of a diva, and sometimes would eat floating pellets. Some days wouldn't. He had to have sinking pellets. So you're going to get fish with preferences of, this fish will not eat off the surface, but this fish will only eat on the surface, kind of a thing. So but then again, like in one of my local club auctions, somebody brought in a new type of pellet that they had developed, and they were auctioning off some samples and different things. And I purchased some knowing that they were kind of a protein-based pellet. So I wanted to see how my fish took to them. My fish like them, but then I run into the issue too of how fast is that pellet food going to break down? So something like Flake Food, I know is going to break down relatively quick. But is the pellet food, is that going to maintain its shape and everything in the water column to allow my fish to go get it? So that's why I really do like the extreme peewee pellets. They stay together really well. If I feed it in good portions, things like my discus do really well on them. But then this protein pellet, is much as my fish like them, if they don't eat them right away, they turn into this powdery dust. It just puts particles everywhere in the water column and is a pain to clean out. So it's still comes down to personal preference on things. I do like to have I like to have a wide variety on hand, just because it allows me to meet needs of fish. I've fed some of the extreme peewee pellets to my rice fish. Again, it's the idea of they're going to pick at it, right? They're going to eat what they can and break it apart, and then it just gives them something new to do. Right. So I hope that helps some people. If you want more information on my take on things like frozen foods, I've recently done a video. I called it the beginner's guide to frozen foods, kind of talking about my three favorite frozen foods and how I feed them. But I think we got about 10 minutes left. So if anybody has any questions you want me to try and answer, any questions about fish foods I've tried, we've got a bunch of people in the chat that have different experiences with fish foods than me. But that's kind of my take on it, is each fish is going to have something different, and each fish food has a different application to it. But then also you want to look at what species of fish are you actually using. So when I start actively breeding plecos, I'm going to be using some frozen foods, some sinking pellets to get to them. Like with the rice fish, are going to be getting a lot of the floating smaller stuff. Bay Area Aquatics is asking me, what's my favorite fish to eat myself? So if you know where Market Street Grill is, and this is like that restaurant that I get treated to like once a year. They have Peter, thank you for putting that link up, my friend. I appreciate it. The last time I was there a couple months ago, they had swordfish. And we're talking like this thing came out like a beef steak, like inch thick, massive piece of swordfish. And that was one of the most tender whitefish I have ever had. Absolutely ever had. And Michael, I do it's kind of fun. Like, I don't need to do it for myself, because you just feed the puffer fish and shrimp, which is classified as seafood. When all the other fish see the puffer fish eating that shrimp, I gotta make the thread of behave yourself. You're going in that tank. No, I'm kidding. Totally kidding. But once again, though, I appreciate everybody being here. I always enjoy doing these. But after the live stream tonight, I'm going to be back down here working in the fish room. I'll make sure I get things going there. But so hope that helps some people with ideas of fish foods you can feed and some different brands you can feed. But really, I would try anything you can. Do I like rice fish? You know what I'm going to do? We're going to tease somebody. I'm going to set up a tank and fill it just full of rice, like legit rice. See what happens about it. Yeah, Carrie, I can tell. Michael keeps telling me I like guppies the best, right? Just absolute guppies the best. I don't know why Peter calls it the guppy garage. He should call it the rice fish garage. That's all he's got in there is rice fish. He's got 30 strains of guppies now, and I'm working on getting my 6th strain of rice fish. That's a good time. Nope, I absolutely love rice fish. So the pond. So I see so the next few days is going to definitely be a focus on getting the fish room going, but I also need to film videos for you guys. Is things like my pond. I still need to get out there and film that for you. Get into all that. I need to film the setup of the shelf behind me. I need to film tanks going over there. I got so many things I got to film, and hopefully have time to edit everything so I can keep getting videos out to you. So, Carrie, what kind of rice fish do I like the best, and what do they like to eat? So my absolute favorite is going to be the orange Madaka rice fish. Fortunately, I was able to find some from a seller on Aquabid. So the orange rice fish is just by far my favorite. And it's funny, too, because everybody that I show them to, like, oh, they're just little goldfish. Like, no, they're not goldfish. Following quickly behind that one that I actually have in my possession is going to be, so they go by a couple different names I've heard of, but I know them as the Pearl Galaxy rice fish. Oftentimes they're also going to be called the Snow White rice fish. The pearl body with that blue eye is stunning, absolutely stunning. And I have really good success feeding my rice fish things like spirulina flake, Extreme, the micro extreme, their micro pellet, and they do really well. I've noticed on things. So I'll feed them regular frozen brine shrimp, the little larger one, and they do really well on that. Actually, I think they really like a little larger shrimp on that. They'll eat the baby brine shrimp, but I've noticed that when I put the regular brine shrimp in the frozen stuff, they feed really well off of that. Really well off of that. Barry Aquatic says they like bugs in a pond. Man, I'm hoping that like my pond is seeded really well with bugs. I definitely need to get more floating plants in there. Unfortunately, the jungle valve that Peter sent me or gave to me, whatever, for whatever reason, I think they like overcooked and there just wasn't enough nutrients in the water for those to survive. And I even dumped in like 3/4 of a bottle of Easy Green in that pond to hopefully add a bunch of nitrates, to add a bunch of things, trying to keep things alive and going. But still working on getting plants in there. You know, Barry Aquatics, I'm trying to get hair algae. Like maybe I need to drop some like driftwood in there or something, just to allow for that. We'll see. Because I do have those big ghostwood logs I'm not going to be using here in the Fisherman anymore. But I've got a potential person interested in those. But I think if nobody buys them or wants them, I think I'm just going to toss them in the pond. You know, I'll have to do some serious water changes after that because it's going to make that pond so tannin filled. But so I'm hoping I want to figure out the secret of growing jungle val in my pond. I think it'd be super cool to just have 3-foot jungle val laying over the top of it, and it'll make a great breeding area for the fish. Fortunately, the red root floaters I put out in the pond seem to have taken hold fairly well, and they're kind of hanging on for dear life right now. So I'm hoping that continues because I would love to see also the red root floater boom across that. That's what I got for everybody tonight. So thank you for joining me. I appreciate everybody coming in. Kind of just more of a low key stream this week. Barry Aquatics, I did not put gravel in the pond, but I did when I added all the lava rock to the filter. I didn't even think about rinsing it before I dumped it in there. So it literally looked like my pond turned this blood red as all the dust just kicked up everything in there. So now that it's settled all in though, the pond liner has this really cool red tint to it going around it. So it almost looks like I have gravel in there, but I don't have anything in there. Dwayne coming in towards the end. I appreciate you being here. Lefty, red root floaters have had the best success in my tanks floater-wise, even in the Mabuna tank. So the tank that I've had the best success of the red roots has actually been my filterless tank, my no-filter tank. They have grown the thickest and the best there. But I do think that tonight is the night that the no-filter tank gets taken down. Not going to keep that going. It was a fun experiment, fun thing to do. But I actually I want that equal complete for another tank. So got to cannibalize it. Carrie, I do plan on keeping my rice fish out in the pond all year. So as Barry Aquatic said, that some people have successfully overwintered them in tubs and totes where there's actually been a layer of ice across it. So me and Peter have actually talked, and we're kind of formulating a plan on potential lids we can create to put over our ponds. So we're going to try some different things to hopefully we don't, because I really don't want to break my pond down every winter. It's just kind of not the point of it. So yeah, Lefty, my intention was to get the red roots going to sell. And that's what I'm hoping is going to happen in the pond. I'm hoping that they're just going to explode out in the pond, but we'll see what happens. Because I split them between a couple different tanks, and it's some of them just didn't die. Some of them died, did not do well. Some of them had held on okay, but I took all of them from that filterless tank outside. So I'm hoping with the amount of sunlight they get, the eventual nutrients going into that pond, just kind of everything falling into it, leaves, litter, all that kind of stuff. I'm really hoping that things will just start cranking out there. And I really do think, so I've always planned on putting rice fish out there, but I think I've settled on putting the Daisy's rice fish out there. I was going to put my Javanese rice fish out, but I think that the Daisies, just with the blue on their body and the red on their body, that if I can get those in the pond in direct sunlight, feeding off insect larvae and some foods I give them, and infusoria that grows in there, microorganisms, all that stuff. I think the colors on those daisy rice fish are going to pop really, really well. So I think tomorrow will be the day that I move all those out there, and I just need to work on getting some more pond plants in there. So we are coming up on that hour mark, so I'm gonna go get my daughter to bed, come down here and turn on the country music, and keep working. So thank you, everybody, who helped me moderate in the stream. I appreciate everyone being here as well. The support on this channel is still just absolutely humbling and mind-blowing. Got a lot of good things coming. And so my new time frame for myself to have this fish room fully operational is end of June. So after tomorrow, I have an insane work schedule for the next 2 weeks. I'm actually working 2 weeks straight. So I don't know how much time I'll have to really be actively working down here, as I'm just going to be focusing on trying to sleep at some point and spend some time with the family. But after that break, I have a nice weekend off where I'm going to be just cranking stuff out down here. So Dwayne, I know you came in a little late. I'm sorry you missed most of the stream, but I just don't have the time tonight to go for longer, as I want to spend a little bit of time with my family before I get back down here and start cranking some stuff out. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Make sure to check out. So Disappear, my fish are kind of technically up in the other fish room. So this is my new fish room. If you're just coming into the channel, this is my new fish room I'm building. So all of my fish are actually upstairs in my laundry room. That's actually where I was able to set up kind of the temporary tanks I have things in right now. So everything will shortly be moving down here. We're finishing the basement out of this new house we moved into, and this is my area for the fish room. So just slowly moving things down here, but hopefully this weekend I have some fish shipping out that will actually be the first official fish in the fish room, because they are going into the nano tank that we have set up right above me. We got that up there too. So again, thank you, everybody. We will see you on the next one, and I look forward to chatting with you then. So for now, have a good night, enjoy your fish, and we'll talk to you guys later.